Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you're new to this channel, or you've not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support this channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they're live, and a PayPal link in the info box below the video once it's rendered. But most importantly, if you would like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the shape of the Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show. Sharing the show increases the live audience, of course, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel. So please share the show. And one last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Now, we are joined by The Plain Truth, Sleeping Warrior, Ranty, Mark Doxy, who's that? Josh, John, Chocolate Saying, Arwin, and Alan. Good to have you all.
Good afternoon.
Hi, folks.
You. Right, so where do we go from here?
General housekeeping.
Yeah, can I just try my echo again? Any echo?
No, it
Yeah,
sounds alright, that.
Seem fine, Josh.
Oh, okay, I'll go with it. Okay, I'll start out then. How high do you guys think a 10-foot wall is?
Depends on how far away from it you are.
Depends
No,
how you
it's-
measure
Okay,
it.
so how about someone else is standing right next to the wall? You might be far away from the wall, but someone else is standing next to the wall. How high is a 10-foot wall?
Can I try and give you an answer, Josh?
Are you looking at it side on orthographically, or are you
Hold
looking
on.
out your eyeballs?
Can I try and give an answer?
No, I'm just asking how.
It's 10 foot high.
Hold on,
This is a
Josh.
question.
The concept
Like,
you are
what
using.
color is the white horse?
The concept you are using, Josh, is 10 feet, right? Which is an absolute measurement. So by asking how big a 10-foot wall is, you are arbitrarily inserting this concept of measuring things. Yeah, who's rattling on their mic?
That's
So
Josh.
it's like a, very zen
Shut
question.
up, Alan.
How high?
Alan,
How high is a
Alan,
wall?
Alan. So when you give a feet and inches measurement for anything, you are automatically forcing the person to answer in absolute terms. Do you understand?
No.
But a 10-foot wall is 10 foot high, right?
Sorry, did
Is
you
it-
just acknowledge a single word that I said? No, of course you didn't, because that would mean you had to concede something now, wouldn't it, Josh?
So,
Josh, you're
Josh.
gonna have to mute
So
when
yeah,
you're
this
not
is what
talking,
this is what's
Josh.
going
You're
on. So
making a lot
Alan's
of noise.
just taking the piss out of Jamie, while I point out to Josh that his calculation type, feet and inches, is an absolute term. So forces the answer to be in absolute terms, not perspective terms. Do you understand, Josh?
No, Nathan. I personally, I
Don't
think a 10-foot
understand?
wall
That's-
is 10 foot.
Sad.
Yes, it is. If you run a tape measure down it, as opposed to look at it. It's not funny, Alan. Yeah? My point is that you're forcing this to be in absolute terms by your question of how high is a 10-foot wall. Yeah? Yeah, you can laugh all you like, Alan. We understand how the trick's being done. The magic trick of your calculator is to force you to use absolute terms, like feet and inches, as opposed to angular terms.
I don't have a calculator, Nathan. I've got a phone. It's got a calculator on it.
Josh, I think what he's trying to ask you is, if you didn't have a way to measure that wall, how would you know it's 10 feet?
I'd imagine that if a builder built it, he would have a way to measure it. And if he
Right.
told me it was 10
Yeah,
foot, then
that's
I
what
But we're not
believe
talking.
that it
We're
was
not
10 foot.
talking. But Josh, we're not talking about the builder or how he got there. You're asking. Josh, you're making a lot of noise, man.
Yeah, of course he is.
I'm really not. I really don't think. I'm trying to be really still.
Right.
Oh,
We're not
you
building
must have
walls,
your-
Josh. We're
Oh,
looking
yeah,
at them.
You know,
We're
best
looking at
question
them.
ever.
Oh, Alan's off again. We're not building walls. We're looking at them through cameras. Okay?
You know, but if it's a wall,
One more time, Alan. I'm just going to boot you out.
you know, if it's a wall and it's 10 foot, how big is it?
Yeah,
Did you
so
have-
Josh,
Did you have a
there's-
series of
there's-
questions for us, Josh? What's the next question?
Yeah. It's yeah. I kind of just wanted to hear from the panel. How high do you think a 10-foot wall is?
I've just explained this 3 times and you still haven't acknowledged what I've said. By terming it in feet and inches, you force the answer to be in absolute terms, i.e. a concept that only holds true if you have a tape measure next to something, not if you look at it. So when you're building it, yeah, you might require a tape measure. When we're looking at it, we don't require a tape measure. Do you understand, Josh?
Yeah, well, that's fine, Nathan. But how high is a 10-foot wall if I'm 100 meters away?
It's still going to be 10 foot.
Yeah,
Well-
it's still going to be 10 foot if you run a tape measure down it as opposed to look at it. We're looking at stuff and taking pictures of stuff, okay?
Okay, well, actually, I'd like Riley to go on if he could. So, what's the
Josh.
calculation then, Riley?
Josh, it only becomes relevant if you have another object that also has a height you can compare it to
Sorry,
in
he
observation.
asked us a question.
Wouldn't it be relevant, Arwen, if someone else was standing next to it? So I'm 100 meters away, but someone else is standing next to it, and I could even call him on the phone, and I say, "Hey, man, how high is that wall that you're standing next to?" And he says, "Oh, it's 10 foot."
Yeah,
Sorry,
and then you say it looks tiny from where I am.
Right.
And then he says, it's perspective, stupid.
And you say, what's perspective, duh?
Yeah, we don't take into account perspective when we're building things, man. You're standing right next to that wall. Right, Josh, you retard?
No, I guess that's my question to you.
My question is, when have we ever taken a picture of somebody on the other side of a 30-foot expanse who's holding a tape measure next to a 10-foot wall and on a walkie-talkie going, how big is that 10-foot wall? When do we ever take any of these observations, Josh? What does this retarded nonsense have to do with anything?
So I would like to, Riley actually answered. I'd like to hear his answer if I could, if that's possible, please. So he said that it was 100 meters away, or I said it was 100 meters away. It was a 10-foot wall. How high is the wall, Riley?
It's 10 feet from 100 meters. That's the answer.
So that's a fraction. So it's just 10 feet divided by 100 meters. Is that what you're saying?
The height of the wall is 10 feet, but it's from 100 meters. That's what you said, right? The distance was 100 meters. So your answer is it's 10 feet from 100 meters. Therefore, it's not 10 feet.
Sure.
No, it is still 10 feet.
It is still 10
It is.
feet, but it's got an angular size, and the angular size has reduced with distance. So this is our point currently, Josh. The angular size of the targets. One of them being the bulge that we don't see, the other being the target that has significantly reduced in angular size because of its distance.
So Nathan, again, maybe I'll say I should direct my conversation to you, Nathan. At 100 meters, how high is a 10-foot wall?
You don't have a tape measure from 100 meters to measure it, Josh. You only have a camera to take a picture of it. And the camera doesn't take into account how big the tape measure next to it would be. It only takes into account its angular size, how big it appears to the viewer. That's the only thing taken into consideration.
Oh, so an angular size doesn't have a distance.
Sorry, the camera takes into account perspective, Josh.
Josh, Josh, what do you see, and what are your conclusions?
I think a 10-foot wall is a 10-foot high wall is 10 foot high no matter where you are.
Yes, because that's the absolute term for the target. We are looking at the same target at a distance. Therefore, its actual size becomes irrelevant, only its angular size, which is what you observe with a camera, Not on an orthographic drawing, not when you're building something, not inside elevation.
Josh, do you think that 10-foot wall is still gonna look 10 feet when you're 100 miles away?
So how high is a 10-foot wall at 100 meters?
Josh, can you answer Chocolate's question? He asked you a question.
No, he's just going to ask the same question. It doesn't matter how many times we give Josh an answer. It doesn't matter how many times we say its absolute size remains the same. It's always 10 foot. He will still continue to ask the same question 400 times because he doesn't have any decent points. He doesn't have anything to address the fallacious use of the calculator that omits perspective. He's just asking us how we would calculate the height of a 10-foot wall based on its angular size, and we're not calculating anything, Josh. We are dissecting the calculations that assert the Earth is a sphere based on a begging the question fallacy where they assume a radius. That's what we are doing. You, ballheads, including you, Josh, because you're a globehead, have a calculator. Hey, Earth Flattener.
So Josh, you're
I'm
standing.
actually really sorry. I'm gonna drop because I can't actually hear anything. But I'm gonna try and join again. So don't kick me.
Right.
Okay. Bye.
Okay.
Yeah, sod off. Don't come back.
I don't know if Earth Flattener's friendly or not.
Who cares? How you doing, Earth Flattener? Good to have you. Shout out to Joey for the super chats. Much obliged.
So let me talk out loud for a second, because it seems to me that the only reason why we're discussing angular resolution is because of the conflict that we have with the curve calculator. So if all things were equal, we would just take pictures and not even worry about angular size and reduction and anything like that. We would never talk about it and worry about the geometry of a photograph. But the reason why we are talking about it is because it runs up against the conflict of the heliocentric model and the curve. That's the only reason why we're bringing it up. And I think that
reality.
I think that that's the cognitive dissonance with someone like Josh, is because he can't understand why we're addressing it. You know, why are you bringing this up? Why are you bringing this up? And it goes back to my initial thought on this when I was doing my angular curvature is, okay, wait a minute. If you're telling me the Earth is curved, then I don't only have to account for the object going over the curve. I also have to account for its reduction in size and the degree of curve. So there's three aspects. There's not just the simple aspect that this thing is going over the curve and that's all we have to do.
Precisely.
Right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, it's not just the geometry, and that's all we hear. You don't understand the geometry. It's like the only reason we're looking at the geometry and applying mathematics is because you guys assert there's a curve. That's it. Most people would look out into the distance with their photograph and go, I see something far in the distance. I wonder how far it is. And when you find out it's 30 miles, you go, isn't that interesting? Whereas if you have a ball belief and look into it, you go, no, you didn't actually see that. The horizon was only at 3 miles. So therefore, there was a horizon in the way. So you didn't really see it. What you saw was looming. You saw something that you couldn't really see, that you didn't have a line of sight with, and it was being lifted up to that horizon at 3 miles and represented perfectly in your vision in the same scale it would be, aside from the inverted mirage on the bottom, which we can't model. But ignore that bit because that's not relevant. It's definitely a mirage. That's what you get told.
And if you have a photograph of something that you've never seen before, you cannot know the distance or the actual size by the photograph.
Right. You'd need references. You'd need pre-measured distances.
Yep.
Yeah. That's why angular size is a sum. It's not just a measurement. Paul has laughed at me for that, but it's true. Unless you know the actual size of something, you can't work out its distance. Unless you know the actual distance to something, you can't work out its size.
Which is why
Triangulation.
which is why we don't know the distance to the sun.
Correct.
Precisely.
Yeah. You need size or distance in absolute to have
Sing song.
functioning
Hey, Sing
form
Song.
of
Place holding.
triangulation.
How you doing? Good to have you, Sing Song.
It's nice and peaceful without rumpus, isn't it?
Hey,
Uh,
you guys see about that one-time historic flight they're going to be doing? Suppose they're going to circumnavigate the globe.
Yeah, and they're not allowing anyone to take compasses, right?
Yep. There's a disclaimer. It's crazy.
How bad's that then?
Honestly, that's the craziest thing that I heard of. Like, they're
Yeah,
not,
but
people
what it
aren't
tells you-
allowed to do any type of scientific,
what it
type
tells you is
study on this plane.
what it
So
tells you.
this crazy. It's like they know.
Let's accept the prerequisite that you're not allowed to take a compass on the plane. Let's accept that, right? And then let's say that the plane goes somewhere that nobody can verify, nobody knows what direction it went in. It tells you that the compass is credible in terms of the direction. So that tells me that this thing called declination for the guys that live in Australia and New Zealand must be nonsense, because if it was, then they wouldn't have a problem with the compass going on the plane. So declination can't really be a thing, because why would there be a problem with the compass on a plane if they weren't telling you the correct angles anyway?
Are they gonna allow people to have cell
Declination's
phones
only a
and
thing
stuff?
if you believe that it's an adjustment for why it's not pointing due south when you're seeing south and you're not seeing stars there that should be there.
No, but
You need declination.
it is the magnetic direction in relation to the direction of the heavenly bodies, which is the more reliable, more regular way
No.
to determine direction.
Hold on,
it's the
Anthony.
correction
Hold
for
on,
why the
hold on,
heavenly
hold on,
bodies don't
hold on,
appear to
hold
be
on,
due south.
hold
No,
on.
no, it's the other way
hold
around.
on,
No.
Hold on.
No, the
Hold
magnetic
on.
direction
Oh,
is
in.
not.
Chocolate Sane's been trying to get a word in edgeways for about 3 minutes.
Who?
Chocolate. Hopefully he's actually going to say something now. I've interrupted you to get him a gap.
Oh, who, me?
Yeah.
Oh no, I wasn't gonna say anything.
Okay.
Right. So, if I can then finish my point, the heavenly body directions, however the layout is, how they function, they are the most regular. While the magnetics on the Earth, they have anomalies, which the magnetic direction map and the magnetic intensity map proves. So that is why declination is a thing. It is to adapt the magnetic direction to the more stable, constant setting of the heavenly orientation.
Nathan was right. I was gonna ask a question. Are they allowing cell phones and stuff to be used on that plane? Like,
No, they're not allowing any.
Confiscate that type. Are you serious?
No instruments, no experiments, no.
They're gonna confiscate people's cell phones off that plane
on the grounds of passenger safety, right? Because we're all going to use a compass or a phone.
Nah, it's crazy.
That
What?
doesn't interfere with any of the guidance systems.
Yeah, okay. When all the planes have Wi-Fi now, come on, man.
I don't even.
Oh, you guys are so horny. I'm sorry, go ahead. This is
no, it's cool, man. It's cool. I'm done.
I wonder what kind of detour route they're going to be taking, or decoy route.
But doesn't that just make themselves look even more suspect? Like, shouldn't they just say, "Hey, everybody could just get on this plane, take what you want, measure what you want," because the world is what we're telling you it is.
Yeah, what are they going to do with
a
the plane?
So backwards.
What's the risk with a plane full of people armed with a compass?
Hello.
Ah, that's a lot better.
Sounds like it'll be impossible to hide the fact with a compass.
I don't mean a spiky compass. I just mean one of those round things with a magnet in them.
Hello.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Hello.
You're behind the desktop now?
In 2018, it's crazy to tell people that they can get on this plane, but they can't have their cell phone, computer, nothing. I don't know.
I'm going to find a video so I can actually read what it says word for word, because it's so suspect.
Yeah, it says
Yeah, now I gotta look that up. Yeah,
they're not allowed to
definitely.
take any scientific instruments, and they don't define it, but they put it in speech marks, and they say you're not allowed to perform any experiments. But technically, if you're going to perform an experiment, you need to have a hypothesis, and you need to have it written down so that people know what you're doing. And without any of that, technically, it can't be an experiment. So by definition, it would fail anyway. But I think they'll class it as an experiment because they don't want people armed with compasses. Ooh.
I don't think they mind compasses.
No, that was one of the things that you're not allowed to take. You can't take a compass. They said it
Where?
on that flight.
Really?
Yeah.
Why not?
Can't take your phone, can't take a compass. You can go for the journey and then just believe that they're going where they tell you that they're going, but you can't take anything with you to test it.
Insane.
Oh, okay. So they
That's
can
insane.
change directions without you taking notice of it.
Yeah, and they can play a direction thing on the seat monitor and for the chair in front of you. They'll tell you
they
where
can
you
play with the little map.
That's
The little
weird.
map
they'll
that
tell you
tells
where
you where you
think
are.
you're going.
Yep.
And just believe.
It's so crazy.
Hey, I'm back again. Am I working?
Yeah. No, your sound's crap again.
Here it is. I got it for you guys. It says, let's see. It says, although the flight is open to all who wish to join in, it has come to our attention that some have expressed interest in using this flight to attempt to disprove or discredit scientific fact. As the safety and comfort of all passengers in our primary concern, we will not permit any scientific or experimental equipment of any kind on board this aircraft. It's called the the Polar Explorer. It's a one-time flight.
That is really creepy. That is really creepy. We won't allow you to challenge scientific facts.
What? Yo, that's like straight indoctrination. Enjoy your indoctrination.
Oh, it's basically
Like,
an
are you-
admittance that
Basically,
you can endanger the scientific fact
like,
when you're on
what?
that flight.
Something
How
about that
is
route
the-
is gonna take.
Somebody
Straight
tell
out
me
admission.
somebody tell me how the quote unquote scientific community is under such threat that they would do something like that.
Yeah, I
Locals.
want to know what the risk to passenger safety is with people, the whole plane load of people armed with a compass and a mobile phone. Ooh.
Yeah, Glovers. Where's
I mean,
the
what's
problem?
realistically the worst thing?
What y'all trying to hide out there, man?
What's realistically the worst thing that could happen? You get out and start arguing over declination, right?
People start throwing compasses at each other. Like, what? How do you explain that?
No, it
Are
can
you
create
kidding me?
unrest with the ball believers.
Oh
It's
my
under the
god!
code of conduct.
Oh my god!
Okay, so I've
Embarrassing.
waited.
What's the airline? Let's name and shame the airline.
I was just going to say I've waited for a bit of a break, and you've gone on to something else, but I just want to get this in. So, is anybody, obviously not on this panel, but anybody in the community at large that we know that we could contact through one or two, people actually going on this flight? Anybody at all?
How much does it cost?
Don't ask me. Just, is there anybody that we know of that's going on this flight? Yes or no?
Not that I've heard of yet.
No, there's nobody that I know that would. But no, I don't think anybody is going on it. But we probably should do. But would you want to go on that flight? Because whatever you say, the ballers will call you a liar. Flat earthers will be thinking, yeah, that's exactly what we predicted. Your name would be. It's like a poison chalice.
Well, that's kind of my point. This seems like a distraction.
Yeah.
I mean, what we're doing
Kind of
in
does.
our own little corner of the internet, and this is a very small corner of the internet, as much as some people get delusions of grandeur when it comes to flat Earth, what we are doing is attacking the ground defences of somebody who comes along innocently enough to examine if the Earth is flat. They will come across an Earth curve calculator to do something practical, to examine their Earth. And 99% of the time they will not realise that it's based on a presupposition, and every value they get out will confirm that it's a sphere whether they like it or not. They won't know that it's emitting perspective, and to date we've got lots of people who are asserting this. Now, as much as I've let you chat about this flight, and it's interesting.
Thanks, Nate.
Go on.
Oh, thanks for letting us chat about the flight. Thanks.
No,
Yeah,
it's not what I
appreciate it.
mean.
Anyways,
What I
economy
mean
class
is,
11,900, business class 19,500.
$19,000.
Wow.
Yes, sir.
Hang on, how could it be any more expensive than any other flight if they're getting the same amount of money from the seat that they would do if it flew long haul elsewhere? I don't see why it would be any more expensive.
Well, you have to pay for their criminal silence. Because people that are basically organizing this, they are, well, knowingly deceiving, obviously. Otherwise, they wouldn't forbid you to take this equipment with you. So they are in the know of the deception. So you're paying them for their criminal silence.
Okay, but these are
bribe
people
a lot
that
of people.
These are people we do not know, and there's nobody going on the flight that will be affected. So it's just a website. What I'm saying is there are people who are deceiving us that we literally get to talk to right here and right now on this show. We've recently spoken to Mick West about his part in the global deception at ground level. And there are plenty of people who have either got to come forward and say, I didn't realise I made a mistake, or not come forward and have us accuse them of being complicit in this deception. In other words, there are people that I don't care about this flight. It doesn't affect me in any way. But the people who've come on this show with you guys, in many instances, have asserted to the audience that the Earth is a sphere based on a begging the question fallacy that omits perspective. And I want retractions. So
yeah, me too.
That's why I want to kind of keep on this subject. It's great to talk about other things. I don't want this to be the only subject we talk about. But by the same token, I don't want to get sidetracked by, there's people deceiving. It's like, no, we've got this on our doorstep. Let's clean house first. Let's do it at ground level here and now with the people we deal with. I can talk to Gem Panda. He's probably in the chat, not that I'm looking. But, you've used this calculator, Gem, and I'm not going to shut up about this. You've asserted the Earth is a sphere to an audience who is ignorant as you are, that the calculations are orthographic and exclude perspective. Well, your application of this maths is wrong, and you need to start admitting it. Otherwise, I'm going to start accusing you of being complicit in this deception. That's true for every single person we call out. So far, it's been Sean Hufford, Red's Rhetoric. Sorry, Sean Hufford, Red's Rhetoric, Gem Panda, and the Rumpus. Now, all of these people need to either concede that they've applied the mathematics incorrectly, which they have, or I'm going to start saying these people are complicit. They are outright lying to people's faces, and I can challenge them. That's the only power I've got. I can't bring down an airline.
Let's not consider that.
And obviously, these liars don't believe that there's any repercussions for their actions here on this physical plane after they're gone.
To be honest, I agree with Nate.
To expose them at least, because it's obviously a scam, especially if they're going to say you can't bring any scientific tools with you. Why?
I left the video in the chat.
Name would they not allow that? It's absolutely ridiculous.
But anyway, let's get back on the point. I do agree with Nathan that these people are intentionally telling us pork pies. However, I also think that there is a divide, maybe 60-40, 50-50, 40-60. Not all of them are complicit. A lot of them are sheep and will follow the flock because, to quote someone's words, so long as somebody like Rumpus explains it, then I'm all right with that. Well, Rumpus is the one that's responsible for you, the sheep that's following the flock. You're being deceived. So Rumpus is responsible, and Jeremy's responsible, and Red's Rhetoric's responsible for misleading everybody about how these curve calculations should be done. And that ultimately stems from Mick West for not telling people that objects in the distance appear to be smaller than they actually are, because nobody told us that this perspective thing was a thing, because we're all stupid, right? But we're only testing your maths. This is what the model is that we're supposed to live on, and it becomes apparent that it doesn't seem to work, because you can't have Taboo Conspiracy doing a video where he demonstrates over a huge distance that the results appear to give the same model, regardless of which model you use. It can't be a sphere as well as it be flat. It's one or the other. It can't be both. And he showed that when he put the maths into it, it did work out both ways. One of them must be wrong, and it turns out that it's because you have to take into account perspective. And then all of a sudden it goes really badly wrong really quick. And that's the reason why they'll never be able to back down. They'll never be able to change it. They'll never admit anything. And Nathan's right. These guys are complicit, and they're pushing the narrative because they're all liars. And I don't know how any of them can stand side by side, shoulder to shoulder with each other, and not realize that they're all deceivers. All of them.
Riley, you don't take a breath, do you, man? You just keep talking and talking and talking and
I know,
talking.
but I have to, otherwise Arwen will take the mic off me.
Ah, fair
So,
enough. Fair enough.
what's the incentive for the deception, knowingly deceiving people?
I don't care about the
Besides,
motivation, to be honest, No Globe. What I do care about is that they've made mistakes, and there's either they're being complicit in that, i.e., they are deliberately and intentionally doing that, making that mistake on purpose, i.e., they know about it but don't care and are doing it anyway, or they've unintentionally made that mistake. In which case, no problem, but you need to come on here, especially the ones that have been on this show, and said to my audience, yeah, it's a sphere, look, it matches these maths. Well, no, you've used absolute sizes, and we see things in a perspective view. So you've got it wrong. You need to come in and say, yeah, I got it wrong. You know, if you need to reapply it, I'm not going to put a time limit on it and say, well, you've got to correct this. No, you just need to come on and make a retraction and say, I've got it wrong. I've applied the maths wrong. I've used an absolute value, even though things get smaller into the distance. I haven't accounted for that, and that's my bad. It's not the calculator's fault. I can't blame it because it's an orthographic calculation. Nothing wrong with that if you use it in that manner, which it's not being used. It doesn't perform viewing functionality, and that's precisely what it's being compared to. Photographs. So for all you users of this calculator, you need to come on and concede that you've got it wrong. You need to make concessions, and you need to retract that you've made any sort of proof using this begging the question, proof of nothing, perspective omitting calculator.
They can't ever back down or concede, though. Ever.
So, Nathan, how high is a 10-foot wall?
It's 10 foot if you run a tape measure down it. If you take a picture of it, it only has an angular size, Josh.
So how high is it in angular size?
If you've got a picture of it, you don't know how high any wall is, Josh, because you're not standing next to it with a tape measure. If you're shooting it from 30 miles away, shock horror, you don't know how big the lamppost is on the other side of the island 30 miles away from you. You just see a little light.
Yeah, but you guys could do it. You and Riley could do it. Like, one of you could be taking a photo and Riley could be right next to the lamppost.
Who gives a shit? We have had people come on the show that have told us the Earth is a sphere using photography and comparing it to a calculator. So your 10-foot wall, I'm sick of hearing it. One more mention of this 10-foot wall and I'll just kick you out. I don't want to hear 10 more times asking about a wall and its actual size when standing next to it with a tape measure. Who cares?
Hey, you guys heard about the 11-foot wall?
The other thing is, of course, it means that we can go back over all of the observations where people have spent. I mean, for example, Mackle Lighthouse at 31 miles away. That looks like literally a pixel on the horizon. So I don't know how big that's going to calculate down to because it's not our model. And although we can work out the maths for it, we shouldn't have to. You guys should be telling us what the maths is so that we can calculate this curvature thing that we can't seem to find. But when we calculate the side of Mackle Lighthouse, what was it, 210 feet, I think it was, at 31 miles? Well, at 31 miles, it's a dot. It's like one pixel on the horizon. You can hardly even see it. You need the zoom lens to even be able to see it. But then you have to apply the drop value for it and put that pixel into that drop value. And that's supposed to be the curve of the Earth that we're supposed to live on. And obviously that's the problem. It's the way they apply the refracted hidden value against the absolute height of everything. And it's completely wrong.
So how high was that lighthouse, Riley?
I think it was 210 feet off sea level, I believe. The focal
and
height.
how far do you have to be away from it for it to be 210 feet?
It's never 210 feet. That's an abstract concept. It's the concept agreed upon for the numbers that run down a tape measure. You don't see things in feet and inches.
Josh.
Yo.
Are you ready, Josh?
Oh.
Okay. Regardless of whether or not you call it your calculator, regardless of that, your system is in conflict with how we see things. It doesn't matter what that thing, what the size of it is in the distance. We don't ask those questions. We just take pictures and look at light. The reason why you're worried about it is because your system is in conflict, and the thing is that you there's a hiccup in your head. You can't see it because it's your system. We don't have. Okay, listen. Hold on. I'm just going to say it one more time.
Sure.
We don't ask your questions. We don't ask that question. It doesn't matter to us. We just look at the picture and say, that's beautiful.
Okay, cool. Like you just said to me, you look at pictures and see the lights. But for some reason, when you take a picture of the sky, you disregard all those lights. Why
Right,
is
hold
that?
on, Josh. Let's just get our point clear. You're asking how high a 10-foot wall is. So let's just give these wind turbines, if you click on my face in the Hangout, you've got some wind turbines, right? Now, according to the curve calculator, these wind turbines are falling away in line with the curve of the Earth. So, you would agree that the first one in the near foreground, that this one is 100 foot, but this one in the distance is also 100 foot, even though it's lower. Correct, Josh? They're both 100 foot, like your 10-foot wall. Just something we can actually look at, though. Correct?
I don't know, Nathan. You're
I'm telling
me.
you,
Is
just
that-
listen.
is that what it is?
Listen, Josh.
Have you
Listen.
researched it?
Open
Have
your
you looked it up?
ears and listen. Listen to the words coming out of your mouth. I'm telling you, for the sake For the sake of this example, all of these wind turbines are the same size. We know this for a fact. Now, just to keep the numbers...
Nathan, where are they? Where are these?
Who cares?
Can we Google them? Can we look them up? Can we find them on Google Earth?
Yes.
Yeah.
So where are they?
They're off the coast of Blackpool. Why? Who cares?
Reference, Nathan. We're talking about factual things, right?
We've gone into them in detail. It's not relevant to my example. If you could shut up and listen long enough.
Sorry. Go ahead, Nathan.
Right. So all of these are metaphorically a series of 10-foot walls, Josh. Do you need to tell me that they're turbines, or do you understand a metaphor?
I'm
a retard. I don't get a simple metaphor.
Metaphorically 10-foot walls. Okay.
Yeah,
cool.
lots of 10-foot walls, Josh. Lots of 10-foot walls, one in front of the next. Do you understand my metaphor?
Sure. Go.
Excellent.
Carry on.
According to the curve calculator, these are going over the curve of the Earth. Would you agree with the curve calculator in its assessment of what we see of a series of 10-foot walls going further into the distance, that they are going over a curve?
Yep.
You would agree that these are curving in conformity with a sphere Earth, Josh?
Yeah, kind of looks like it.
Kind of looks like it? Yeah?
Kind of looks like it.
Just kind of looks like it. But hold on, Josh. Hold on. We've got a wall that's 10 foot. Why isn't the wall behind it also 10 foot? I don't get it. They're further into the distance, but one 10-foot wall is bigger than the other 10-foot wall. What's going on, Josh? Why would that be? Curve of the Earth, right?
Yeah.
Curve of the Earth.
Yeah, that's right. You just said it. It's going over the curve of the Earth.
Hold on. No. Let's just talk about this a little bit longer. So it's going along the curve of the Earth. And the maths agree with you, Josh. As we measure out the distances between 9 miles and 12 miles, the distance from the first to the last turbine, they absolutely are, unequivocally, getting further away and going over the curve of the Earth, exactly in line with what the curve calcs say. But we assert, Josh, that the curve calcs omit perspective. They don't include the virtue of things getting smaller into the distance exactly as we see in these wind turbines. It doesn't include that element. The mathematics only account for the sphericity with actual sizes. So all of these walls are all 10 foot. Right, Josh? Even though they're going over the curve. But according to you, they're built on a curve. So when we start looking along the x-axis from the y, we start finding... from the z, sorry. When we start looking at the x-axis from the z-axis, we find that they are unequivocally not built on any curve. They're not conforming to the curve of the Earth, Josh. They're built perfectly level with each other. All of them are in a line. So they're falling away in line with the curve calcs, and yet they're all built perfectly parallel. It's amazing. How is that possible? Well, it's funny because we can also look at the same picture a different way. We can look at the fact that things get smaller into the distance and say it's just perspective. And what do you know? When we look at these things, they definitely aren't built around any curve. You can see it right now. There they are, all the same height, all in a line, all parallel with the very flat line that they sit on. Because they are built flat, like everything's built flat. But when we see them looking down the line, we see them getting smaller with distance. That would be called perspective.
Do you think, Nathan, that green line, do you think that's passing through the center of which set? Like, I'm literally just seeing some random lines strewn across a picture. Like, what do you think you're looking at?
I know what I'm looking at. You don't have the slightest, vaguest notion what we're looking at. We're looking at a row of wind turbines, and Ranty has gone through with all of these colours, and you can see as it gets to the end of the picture, and I'll even pause it for you. Damn it, I missed it. We'll let it run through again. I don't see why not. So these are what you just saw along the x-axis from the z-axis. So you've moved your position to look along this row of wind turbines. There are also other rows. They don't just have a single line of wind turbines. So Ranty has gone through, and again, useful that we've got perspective because we can see which row lines up with which, because they're all perfectly parallel with each other, and the ones that don't line up are slightly smaller because they're further away. Shock horror. Perspective lets us work out which ones are in line with which, and you can draw a line through the hub, which is precisely what Ranty has done. He did it live. He did it on a show. To work out precisely where they were, it took hours. It took a very long time for him to geographically work out on Google Earth exactly what position this was and where he was looking down which line. And he located them to he has every single one of these wind turbines marked out perfectly. So if you want to challenge these photographs, feel free to go back to debate number 177, where he went through this information originally.
That green line and that red line has not passed through a single center of any one of those wind turbines.
It's at the end of the video. You can see where they stop. That's the height of the wind turbine. You got to learn to pay more attention, man.
Armin, I'm paying a lot of attention. That red line and that green line, they're not passing through a single. Obviously, we're trying to line up the center of the turbines.
You're
That's not passing through a single
Look
one.
at the red line, not the other lines, the red line.
The red line is not passing through a single center of a turbine.
That's a good one.
See?
Could you show me?
You see that endpoint?
Could you take it back and show me which line, which
Josh,
two
shut up.
turbines?
Wow.
Too late. Told you.
You know what? I see a straight line. Nope, it's curved.
Now you see
No,
these
I
wind.
didn't
See these
say
wind
that. I said
turbines.
it wasn't passing through a
Did you
single
see?
center of
Do
a
you see
turbine.
these wind turbines right here? This is the z-axis.
So bad.
You see these wind turbines? This is the z-axis of these wind turbines.
Hey man,
right?
hey, I'm so sorry.
So
but
just
I
hold
can't-
on 1 second. Just hold on 1
You've
second.
already rage quit over a conversation with me, man.
Go
I
ahead.
can't talk to you. You got nothing.
What? What are you smoking?
Remember when I asked you about
Listen,
we
don't
were
divert.
devising an experiment
Don't
about
divert,
going up
please.
high and the horizon dropping, and
Please
you
don't
rage quit
divert.
because you couldn't
This is the
consolidate your brain.
z-axis. See the z-axis here of these wind turbines? Now, when he
What-
shifts to the x-axis, you're looking at the x-axis of these turbines. They are the red line. You see that red
and can
line? They go
can you
right
just
through the
stop?
hubs.
What hub? What hub?
That's
That's going over the hub. That's going over the hub.
Josh,
That's going
shut
over
up
the
for a
hub. That's
moment
way
and
over
just
the
look
hub.
at the picture. Shut up for a moment. Look at the picture. Just before the end, you'll see exactly which hub, the center point of the wind turbine, the
You
spinning
guys
thing.
really
Just
that
shut up for a
red line
second
is
and
going
watch.
through the hub.
Just shut up for a second and watch. When the lines end, they are going to end up exactly at the center of one of the hubs.
Arwin, you were with me when John rage quit about trying to
I don't
ask about
care.
the horizon.
I don't
dropping.
care. Stop
What?
obfuscating.
What the hell?
Dude, you don't even understand basic perspective. This is just...
Don't you remember that, John? Ah, that's so funny.
Sorry, are you actually here for a debate or are you just here to troll?
I came here to ask you how high a 10-foot wall was, and none of you can actually
That
answer it.
question is retarded.
It's more perspective.
Okay. Do you see the red line going through the hubs?
Yes,
Hey, Josh, I'll ask you a question on a similar level. I know you're gone, but what color is a canister of black paint?
What color is the red line?
Yeah. Ridiculous, man.
I think our brain might damaged.
Hey,
So
unorthodox.
unorthodox, is he a friendly? Because he was asking why
he's
is
friendly.
the show full? Because
Yeah,
people
it's
want to
on.
join.
Good to have you.
Hello.
Wow, you're loud.
Oh, God, turn
so
him down.
You can't
Man.
see past
Yo,
7, 8
you
miles.
north.
You say
Unorthodox.
something
I'm sorry,
again,
guys. I had you
unorthodox.
on double time for a second. So if y'all said anything, I couldn't hear you.
You're just so close to your mic. It's like so hot.
I'm so close to my mic. We'll turn it down just a little bit. It's a
No.
inline mic.
I love it. I love how Globus don't listen. I say you're really close to your mic, and he says, I'll turn it down a bit.
No, I said you turn it down a bit.
Right. Listen to the words coming out of my mouth. You are too close. This is a proximity thing, not a volume thing. I am in no doubt whatsoever that you haven't listened to a word of what I've just said.
To be fair, Nathan, he was saying he's got an inline mic and he can't move it.
Yeah, you're the one not listening, Nathan.
Oh,
That doesn't mean he's not too close to the line.
Right.
He's too
I
close.
can't move it. It's
You
in
move
my-
yourself. Move
It's
yourself.
in my ear, dude.
this is incredible.
It's in my ear. It hangs down from my ear to the side of my shirt and in my phone in my pocket. So it's not possible to really adjust the distance. And even if I did, I'd be adjusting it in a radial arc, and it'd be the exact same distance from my face.
Doesn't
Hey,
sound that much
unorthodox.
better
Can I
now,
ask you a
so let's
question?
move on to an actual subject.
What the hell does that have to do with flat Earth?
On a slightly different note, does anybody ever wonder how deep the ocean floor is based on these turbines that all look the same height and it looks like they've got the same amount sticking out? It kind of makes you think that the ocean floor might be quite shallow, or is it just me?
No, it is. It's in between two land masses. Those levels of ocean are not deep at all. In between like right off the coast, the ocean is not that deep compared to
it's
the,
like
the
18
mid-Atlantic.
inches, 20 inches.
So do you put wind turbines based on shallow or based on
They
the
build a foundation. The ocean floor is pretty regular, so there's not much height
So
difference
there is a foundation.
between one location and the other. Right next to it, it's not that steep at all. As well, unless you are at the more rocky, like next to mountains, then usually the ocean floor does get a lot steeper. But in between England and Ireland, it's pretty much level.
Isn't
Yeah,
that its
a
own
pair of
country
stilts.
though? The Isle of
Probably
Man.
awkward.
Like I know this isn't really a flat Earth topic, but I've heard y'all talk about this before, and I was looking at it a little bit. And I read about it just a little bit, but it's like a separate entity, right? It's not England or Ireland or part of the UK, is it? As an American, I've never really.
Isle of Man is British.
Oh, it is.
Well, it doesn't come under the definition of United Kingdom or British Isles.
Really?
I don't think so. I think it's an island. British Isles doesn't include the Isle of Man, I don't believe. And I know that
Nobody
United
wants
Kingdom
them.
doesn't. No, I think
Yeah,
they're
if you look
independent.
online, it was like its
Independent,
own.
really?
Online, it was
I think so.
independent. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, they're a tax haven, I think. I think people go there for tax reasons, which I've never understood.
Yeah. Do you know what the population is?
Are they
No.
part of the European Union or?
It's about 30,000, isn't it?
Oh, really? So it's pretty small.
Oh, no,
I guess it's a decent size.
83,000 it is, apparently.
Oh, really?
right, okay. I was
83,000.
way off.
And it says Isle of Man is a self-governing British Crown dependency in the Irish Sea. So self-governing British Crown dependency, whatever that means.
All right. So then
No.
it is part of the empire. It's among the Commonwealth.
No, it's self-governing.
Yeah, but that's Commonwealth.
So kind of like Hong
it's
Kong. Hong Kong was part of the British government until recently, right? Then they split off. Now they're self-governing.
But it'll still fall under the jurisdiction of, but it can still be self-governing. That's just the Commonwealth system.
Have you ever heard about Hong Kong? Hong Kong was officially considered, like a territory of the UK until just a couple of years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was pretty crazy.
I stand corrected. Isle of Man is considered one of the British Isles. So it is
Oh,
classed
really?
as British Isles. I don't think it's classed as Great Britain, though.
Now, Britain has got so many little specks of land everywhere. If you look at like how many pieces of land they've touched and like declared part of the country, it is absolutely insane.
And not just that, there are so many like types of underdivision of how things are governed, how things are divided. It's like 3 or 4 types way things are categorized in the
Oh,
British
yeah.
Empire. It's very complex system.
Yeah, I had this conversation with Issa. Do what, guys? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt somebody.
Crazy.
But I was saying I had this conversation with Issa, and he was saying, like talking about the moon landing and stuff. He was saying, like America's like the greatest, man. We went to the moon, yeah. I was like, well, you can make a case for like Great Britain, right? They've got like 200 colonies around the world. He's like, no, man, we went to the moon, and it's just so funny. And it got into this thing where like. It's so funny. Like rockets look like penises, right? So like America's like, screwing the world, right? We're sending our rockets out, our penis-shaped rockets out in space, and we're screwing everything.
Yeah, phallic.
Do what?
Phallic shape.
This is a highbrow discussion.
Oh, come on, man. We can't have a little fun.
How you right, bro?
I mean, come on. I mean, y'all are always so serious. We can't have a little bit of fun here. I mean, it was so funny, man. He got me cracking up. I talked to him one day for about 5 hours. He had me. I was a flat earther for like 20 minutes, y'all. But
yeah, I couldn't give a crap.
Yeah,
not really. No, unorthodox. Do you believe we went to the moon? Do you believe we went to the moon?
I mean, rockets exist, and I can see the moon. So point a rocket at it and go there, man. Yeah.
That's your logic.
I mean, you can break it down to that kind of basic logic. Yeah, right. I mean, I can see, the shop up the road from my house. I know cars exist. I can get the car and go there.
Listen, man. I asked you seriously, bro. Do you believe that we went to the moon?
Hold on, Owen.
Yeah, I mean, I used to not believe it, but after when I was in high school, I had a teacher who didn't believe we went to the moon. But after reading and listening to a lot of people talk smarter than me, I don't. And like I said, you can see the moon. Rockets exist, right? So what's the problem with pointing a rocket and going to space? It's really, I mean, and when you break it down as simple as in its most simplest terms, it really doesn't seem that crazy.
Well, there is no vacuum of space, so their medium is destroyed. So
crazy. And the moon is not a physical
nonsense.
Well, do you not think air pressure decreases as you go up? I mean, if you can agree that air pressure decreases as you go up.
Where'd you get air pressure?
This guy.
Oh, is this the presuppositional container argument where you actually use the definition of air pressure as force over area being a two-dimensional object as something for container? That makes no sense.
You know what you're talking
about. I've ever heard.
Yeah.
I want to say something. I do know what I'm talking about. I'm a mechanical engineer. Okay, so I do know what I'm talking about.
That's impressive.
I'm gonna be intellectually honest here. I'm gonna go ahead and tell you an argument that the ballers have been using on your show that's incorrect. Okay.
No, let's get back to your container first. The container.
That's what this is about. This is about the container. This is exactly about the container.
You have to show a tire pressure without the tire.
No, you don't. Not absolutely. No, you don't. So I've heard a lot of ballers
absolutely,
say.
Yes, you do.
No, you don't. You cherry picked some chemistry reference.
I cherry picked.
So the whole body of science disagrees with you.
The body of science.
And right, do you know what a mercury barometer is?
Oh, a barometer.
The body of science begs the questions on a regular basis.
And you're trying to say that the body of science says you need an air pressure container. No, nobody says that. No
air pressure container.
The body of science accepts P and R got really fat.
I want to show you guys how intellectually honest I am. Okay, right? Y'all been having this conversation about the lid. Like there's a lid on the earth.
No, a container.
Well, whatever, a lid container, you know what I'm talking about. So I've heard the Globers say that, okay, well, there's a gradient. There's no gradient in containers. That's not true.
A pressure gradient?
Yeah.
Where'd you get air pressure without a container?
Will you just listen to what I'm saying? I'm not making an argument for or against this. I'm just telling you that I'm going to destroy an argument from my side of the perspective, okay? I'm going to destroy an argument that Globers use because it's a misconception. I've heard a lot of Globers say that in order to have a gradient, it has to be an open system. Like if it's a container, if it has a lid, then the pressure shouldn't vary. It should be all the same pressure. That's not true. That's a simplification of the science, because typically in a container, there's such a negligible difference between the pressure at the bottom and the pressure at the top that you don't have to consider that. But it's actually factually false.
Depends on the size of the container, because downward acceleration force still applies.
Well, I mean, you can just do P equals rho, which is the density, times G, which is gravity, times the height, and that can give you the difference in air pressure.
No, gravity doesn't have anything to do with it. Because
Right,
gravity,
you
which
can
gravity?
use the little g just perfectly fine.
Which gravity? Einstein or Newtonian?
32.2 feet per second squared.
Yeah, downward
Or
acceleration.
9.8 meters per second squared.
Little g, downward acceleration force.
Is that Newtonian Cavendish gravity?
No.
That's just, we're just talking about the downward acceleration. If you talk about density,
No.
you can get the difference at the bottom versus the top with pressure equals rho GH. Rho density, G gravity, H height. So that's
Thanks for the
what Glover
description.
say.
Thanks
Huh?
for the description.
Well, you're welcome. You seem to misunderstand like the whole thing. Like,
Oh, I do. Where?
Pressure, therefore container. No.
Air pressure, yes.
Nobody says
Container,
that.
yes. No one says that.
You got that from a chemistry reference, right?
Chemistry, yeah, chemistry falls under physics. A chemistry reference, a NASA reference, and about 6 others. Yes.
No, the one you're using specifically is a chemistry reference. Can you tell
Chemistry
me?
falls
can you
under
tell me
physics.
any other physical definition of a unit that has to have an asterisk on it? Like to understand air pressure. Well, okay, so to understand air pressure, the definition of air pressure is force over an area, right? So there's an saying there's
what's
an
the area?
asterisk there. You're saying that is not enough information.
Asterisk. What the heck?
Yeah,
are you
that's the
talking
asterisk. So if it's force divided by area, a container is not an area. A container is a
What
volume.
asterisk?
Right? The asterisk, you're saying that it has to be a container.
What asterisk are you talking about?
So you're saying that the description force over area is enough?
What asterisk?
Is the quit being intellectually dishonest, okay?
Quit being
air
intellectually
pressure
dishonest.
is air pressure force over area or not?
You like honesty, your intellect.
Is air pressure force over area?
It's force per unit area.
Exactly. So you're telling me there's
what's the area?
Area is a two-dimensional thing.
Asterisk. Where's this asterisk coming from?
Don't be intellectually dishonest. You know exactly what I'm saying.
He's citing your
Do you know what you're saying?
I think he's citing your footnote, John.
What is it?
Presentation.
You're saying it's a container. A container is a three-dimensional phenomenon.
Yeah.
Is it not?
Is gas not a three-dimensional phenomenon?
Air pressure isn't.
It's not? That's
not in its definition. No.
okay.
Its definition is two-dimensional. Are you saying the definition, how we define air pressure, isn't right? That's not the definition of air pressure. But the reason I came on here because I wanted to ask you guys if I do an experiment, kind of live on your show. I'm sure you guys know what a Foucault pendulum is, right? So if I set up a Foucault pendulum and I present it live on your show, or if I was also thinking about setting up an apparatus to show the equation for centripetal force. Now I was going to do one or the other because as long as I've been listening to you guys, I haven't heard your thinking develop at all. You haven't given way to any kind of ideas, any kind of truths. You just kind of seem to be doing the same thing over and over.
Then you obviously haven't actually been following the show at all.
Wait, aren't you
for about 3 months?
Aren't you the same dude? Aren't you the same dude that said something about we can't make any observations past 7 or 8 miles? Wasn't that you?
I said typically that's what you see, right?
He
laughs at his own
Are
statement.
you going to deny that? Are we even going to deny that?
I don't know anybody on this panel that is on the flat Earth side that ever made such a ridiculous statement that you can't see beyond any point. No.
On the ocean surface, which is 70% of the Earth's surface, the typical horizon is roughly 7 to 8 miles away.
Oh, you mean the apparent horizon?
According to what maths?
According to what?
No, according to
this is
according to your
nonsense.
eyes.
This is just nonsense,
Right.
Orthodox.
So on that
Oh,
one
no one
video
in your
where we
eyes.
saw the mountain over 200 miles away, that's
not what
just
I'm.
an
That's
illusion.
not,
that's just
that's
a
not what I'm
figment of our
saying. When you're misrepresenting the argument.
Right.
Why would
My
you?
point is just
I
that
think you're being
typically,
intellectually
in
dishonest.
in
Talking about
what
something
way
that's
am I being
apparent.
intellectually
It's
dishonest?
nonsense.
Please tell me.
Apparent
Well,
only
if
on
a
the horizon.
mountain can be seen at about 200 miles, how can you say that 7 or 8 miles is the furthest that we can see?
I didn't say you misrepresented my argument, or you didn't hear me. I'm not saying 7 to 8 miles is the longest you can see. I'm saying typically on the ocean surface you can't see past 7 to 8 miles in
Typically.
99.9% of circumstances.
Oh, okay. Typically, except
means
for
nothing.
all the exceptions that
It
we
means
have
nothing.
caught
Absolutely
on camera.
nothing.
Well, I've been along
So
today.
it's always, except not always. So it's just.
Well,
I mean, exception. I mean, if you see something 999 times,
Yeah, we got
and then
daily
you see something
exceptions.
else one time,
We
what are
got
you gonna believe?
daily exceptions. Check out.
But it's gotta be flat though, Arwen.
Daily exceptions. Daily exceptions.
Nathan, do you want to share my screen?
Having height. It's got to be flat. If it's got a height, that kind of defeats the argument, doesn't it?
Oh, sure.
Well, I really want to know if what you guys would think about me presenting an experiment on your show.
That's fine.
That's kind of why I came on here.
Okay.
Whoa,
That's going to be
round out
interesting.
with that.
I think
Hold
John is
on.
going to be
Guys,
there.
he's asked
Your
twice.
experiment?
Let's round out with
Good
it.
experiment.
John, I'm not
Right?
going there. I'm talking about presenting an experiment. If I do an experiment to show you guys if I can prove the centripetal force equation, it'd only take a few minutes on your show, and I can show you guys that it would be absolutely negligible on Earth through this experiment. Would you guys accept
Experiment.
So what is the observed phenomena?
Exactly.
What are your
Centripetal
dependent
force.
and independent variables?
Speed could be your independent variable. You got a mass on the end of it.
What is the observed phenomena that makes you think that Did you say centrifugal or
All
centripetal?
you gotta do is spin an object.
Which is
Or
which is
go
the
around a
hang on,
curve
can-
in a
it's not-
car.
hang on, wait, hang on. What's the observed phenomena? Did you say centrifugal or centripetal?
Well, I forget the two. I forget which one is which way. I think it's centrifugal.
As an engineer, you should know this.
I wasn't able to work out which one you said.
Honest. Okay, science is absolutely massive. That's ridiculous. I don't remember every single term, every single way. That's just
Well,
absolutely.
you're going to do an
silly.
experiment to prove it anyway, right?
Experiment.
Do what?
You're going to do an experiment.
They're the same equation. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
You're going to do an experiment to prove the thing that you can't quite remember anyway, right?
No, they're the exact same equation. One is from the side of the object hanging, and the other is from the side of momentum.
Chances are it won't even transpire.
They're the exact same equation.
Yeah, we know the equation exists. We're asking, is it relevant in the real world? That's the question.
Equations aren't experiments.
Well, let me put it this way to you. You know what rim velocity is, right? The circumferential speed, the tangential speed. It's the speed that the actual outside edge spins.
Yes, I know what tangential.
Right. So and that's governed by the radius of the thing in question. So the bigger the wheel, the faster the velocity of the rim. So a small wheel will have a slow velocity of the rim compared to a great big wheel that'll have of the same RPM. It'll have a much faster rim velocity, and the bigger the wheel, eventually it'll pull itself apart because it can't. The bigger the wheel, the slower it has to turn. But we know that with the rim velocity, the bigger the radius, the greater the rim velocity if it's based on one revolution or based on a fixed revolution. And we cannot see any evidence of a centrifugal force because the gases in the atmosphere would be the opposite way around on the equator. You would have the densest layer of the atmosphere that would be up at the top because that would be centrifuged, and you have the lightest layer of the atmosphere would be on the surface where we live because that would be the opposite. It would be displacement, and we don't see that. So
that's why I'm wanting to show you guys an experiment to show you that.
Sure. I'd like
to 24 hours.
But the starting point is what's the phenomena? What's the phenomena you see?
Well, go in a car and take a turn, man, and you'll feel your momentum wants to stay in the same direction.
Sure, now you'll prove it in relation to a car, but what's the phenomena on the Earth that you see that makes you think that centrifugal force might be the
effect? I told you.
It's the presubstitutional sphere head chuggy stall.
I think unorthodox is not very familiar with the scientific method here.
Oh, I'm talking about proving experimentally with an equation.
Equations aren't experiments.
Equations.
They're equations.
I know
That's
what
right.
they're trying to ascertain.
I can't hear
What they're trying to get from you right now is what phenomenon makes you think that the same force that you feel in a car, right, when you take that turn, what makes you think that that happens on the supposed quote unquote planet that we
Well,
live
we're
on?
talking about a model. I believe in the globe.
Model. That's
You guys
pseudoscience.
say,
Okay,
we know that.
okay,
Okay,
but
so what's the problem? You guys
prove
are
it's a
saying that there's
globe.
an inconsistency in the globe model, and I'm telling you, I can prove that there's no
A
inconsistency.
model in science is
Oh,
pseudoscience.
God.
He's gonna
Okay,
prove it. Let him prove
young flat earther creationist. You're you
All
know,
right.
you're
All right. What's your
you're not
hypothesis?
taken seriously.
What's the hypothesis?
I'll roll that all out when I do the experiment live. Okay.
You're gonna do
I'll
it
roll it all
live
out for you, and yeah, I want to do it live. I want
right
to set
here.
it up and do it live.
Yeah, but
No,
you have to
not
tell us.
now.
You have to tell us what your hypothesis is before you do it.
I will do that at the time. I will walk you through it at the time.
But really, I want to know what the observed phenomena is that makes you think that there would be a thing to test.
I just told you. Momentum is the phenomenon. The
Right, so where do we see the momentum?
Centripetal and centrifugal forces. One is momentum, and the other is the acceleration due to moving around the circle.
Yeah, I understand the math, but what I'm asking is where do we see this that makes you think that you can do an experiment based on it to test to make sure that this is happening?
What do you mean? I mean, you ever heard of like the old slingshot that David and Goliath used, right? It's like a circle and he whips it around.
All right, well, nobody.
But unorthodox momentum of what is what they're asking.
Yeah,
momentum
nobody
of what? When you go outside and you stand on a sidewalk, do you feel momentum when you're
That has
standing
nothing
on?
to do with the argument. My
How does that
argument
have nothing to do? You're talking about the Earth. You want to freaking? Oh my God!
because I just told you, you're telling me there's a logical inconsistency in the globe model. I'm telling you, no, there's not. That's the whole point. Is you're saying there's a logical inconsistency. I'm saying if that's true, if we live on a globe, this is not a logical inconsistency. That's what I'm telling you. So the observed phenomena really isn't kind of the point. The point is that there's no logical inconsistency.
It's not the point. Oh my God! It's just your dependent variable. That's all.
Is absolutely.
Forget about step one. We're just going to step two, even though step one's required.
Nobody disputes that centrifugal.
Let's go to step two, even though step one's required.
Yeah, you need to sort out what your observed phenomena is first.
Hey Nathan, can I share my screen? We can go through this.
Yeah, sure.
I just told you it's momentum.
Presuppositional momentum.
But momentum doesn't prove circumferential speed. It doesn't indicate a circumferential speed. It just indicates momentum.
Can I just let
You're
Ranty know
asking for a
something,
basis
Anthony?
for the
Sorry to
experiment. I
interrupt.
just gave you a basis. I'm not
Momentum of what?
extrapolating any further.
Momentum. Okay, that's your observed phenomenon.
We will come back to you, Ranty, I promise.
And that has to be your dependent variable also. So
I told you I'll roll it all out when I do the experiment live.
momentum. All right, hypothesis.
You said you're the one that you were saying that height couldn't be a independent variable, right?
Yeah, that's right.
So you're you trying to get me to walk through a scientific method example with you is pretty much null and void right there.
Oh, it's null and void. It's just a hand wave dismissal.
Do we not live in a physical? Did you or did you not say you can't use distance as an independent variable?
Yeah, distance doesn't cause anything besides distance.
Well, you said you can't use it because it's not a physical thing. Do you believe you live in a simulation?
Where are you going and jumping on different topics? What is your hypothesis?
Do you live in the physical world or not?
What is your hypothesis for your
I told you I'm not going through this. I'll walk
Why
through
not?
it. I'll set it up nice and neat. I'm not doing it with you because you don't believe that distance can be
I don't believe
an independent variable.
What's your son problem?
Walk me through why height can't be. You also said mass can't be. You did some silly thing on here where you're saying mass can't be an independent variable either.
No, mass in that hypothesis that they gave us before, no, it can't. It's affirming the consequent form of logical fallacy.
No. What about distance? What about height?
Hold on a second. Yeah.
I'm just curious. For me to
I'm curious too.
Can I use distance?
See, we got momentum. Now we want the hypothesis, and to stop you diverting.
I'm not walking.
What's the hypothesis?
I will roll it all out whenever I set up the experiment.
What experiment? First. You have the hypothesis first. Hold on, Orthodox. Can you listen to me just for a second?
Yeah.
Your experiment is the expression of your hypothesis. It comes before the experiment.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to present it before the experiment.
Right. So let's have it presented then.
I'm not ready to. I don't have the experiment set up. I came on to ask you if I was to.
He
set up an
wants your
experiment
hypothesis.
Do we want the experiment? We want the
He's not
hypothesis.
asking you to perform the experiment.
You
He's
guys
just
know
asking
what I'm trying to prove here. And when the time comes, I'll have it all set up. I'll have it all pretty nice and neat.
Unorthodox.
unorthodox.
What?
Let me ask you something.
He wants your hypothesis, not the experiment.
I told him I'm not walking through that with him. If somebody else wants to do it, I'll do it with somebody else. But he doesn't
But
believe.
you're the one who's coming here saying I want to present this experiment on your show.
No, I'm not.
So-
Yeah, exactly.
So the host of the show is asking you to present
No,
your
the host of the
hypothesis.
show isn't
Why
me-
don't you do
isn't
that?
asking
Yeah, he did. He just asked you that.
No, John asked me.
No,
Yeah.
I just did.
And so is everybody else on the panel, bro. We're all asking you what is your
He said
hypothesis.
mass can't be an independent variable. So I guess
Unorthodox.
Out to mid HC. Thanks for the super chat.
This experiment that you
Well, I would
want
be
to
changing the mass. Mass would be a component in this hypothesis and in this equation. So if I can't use mass, there's a little problem right there. John's trying to basically prevent anything from moving forward.
We have
what is
momentum.
the mass of what are you trying to change?
An object that's rotating.
That's a presupposition.
But you want to experiment on the Earth, right?
Hold on, let Chocolate interact with Unorthodox. Hold on.
Hold on, bring it up again, okay? I'll tell somebody else this, but I'm not doing John because he's ridiculous. You want to pull it up? I'll talk with somebody else. He's just absolutely absurd. He said you can't use mass, you can't use distance, but okay.
Unorthodox. I have a question for you, just real quick.
Yeah.
Give us your understanding of an independent variable in your own words.
An independent variable is the variable that's manipulated by the scientist, right?
And
it has a causal relationship.
No,
with
it is
the
your
outcome.
cause. It is the cause.
No, it has a causal relationship.
It has two things that it needs to have. One, it needs to be variable by you, the researcher, and two, it is your presumed cause.
So are you presuming that I can't present centripetal force in that kind of certain scientific method?
No,
you
we're
don't think I'll be
asking
able to do
you.
that?
There's
We're
only
asking
one
you.
scientific
Listen,
I guess I would have to change the angular speed,
Orthodox,
right? I could change the
listen.
mass and I
Shut
could
up.
change the angular
Shut
speed.
up.
Unorthodox.
Shut up.
Real quick.
Shut up and listen.
Real quick.
We're asking you for your
Let me ask you a
presumed
question. Let me ask
cause.
you a question.
We're asking you. The
Hold on.
hypothesis
Okay,
establishes.
the angular speed
Oh, we
is the
can't shut
cause.
up, can he? Shut your mouth and listen. The reason we're asking for the hypothesis is it because it establishes the cause.
John's ridiculous, though. Like I said, I walked.
Oh, that's the best response you've got. John's ridiculous. We say you don't need to do any experiments. First, you need to tell us what you presume is the cause, the hypothesis. We explain that to you, and your answer to that is John's ridiculous. You're an idiot.
Yeah, I'm not going to explain it to John. I'll explain it to somebody else. He said you can't use mass, you can't use distance, right? But I mean, in this case, we'd be using the angular momentum, the angular rotation, and you could also change the distance. You could do both.
Okay,
Arwen,
wait. Unorthodox.
Arwen, give it to him.
Me?
Wait.
Give it to him.
Sorry,
me ask-
I'm only paying half attention here.
You guys are so intellectually dishonest.
I have a question. Unorthodox.
He's not
I have a
wrong.
question.
Okay, go ahead. Let the trucker dude talk for a second.
Trucker dude.
Trucker
I
dude.
love it.
Yes,
sir.
Okay.
Later.
Just real quick, restate because it's a lot has been said since I first had my thought on trying to follow up with you real quick. So you said something about changing the centripetal variable or something along those lines, or the
Yes.
angular spin, right?
Yeah, the angular speed.
How are you going to do that?
Okay, the angular speed. Okay, all right. So my question to you is, if I had a hypothesis that said something like the rate of pheromones that a female unicorn releases affects the amount of male unicorns that will show up in a geographical location, what would I have to first prove before I even get into my hypothesis?
No, what my point, I'll go this again. I'll say this again. The point is that you're saying there's a
unorthodox.
logical inconsistency.
Answer my
Those
question.
pictures from space,
Answer
dude.
Answer my
We went to
question.
the moon.
Yeah,
And
pictures
that's
from
proof
space.
enough, right? But
That's a really good
not the
question.
point. The point is that you're saying there's a logical inconsistency. I'm saying if we live on a globe, that is not a sticking point. That's not a logical
Unorthodox. Can you answer his question?
You just have to assume
Unorthodox.
that it has a rotation.
Unorthodox. Let's answer his question. His question he asked.
Well,
was-
not only that. No. Now I'm at a point
Why
of
you want me
saying.
to answer his question? You guys
No,
are so
no.
ridiculous, man. This is
I'm
so
at
funny.
I'm at the point of saying, well, if there are female unicorns, then what's the problem with my hypothesis?
Yeah, but there's tons and tons of other stuff, right? So
And
the
you
sun
got
comes
pictures
up,
from
the sun
space.
sets,
Arwen,
right?
You got
How do you,
pictures of
Arwen,
unicorns.
give him
how do
chance.
you know?
Arwen,
that's
hold
how
on,
science
guys.
works.
I got a
Arwen,
really
please.
good drawing of a unicorn.
Arwen, just let him
No, there's a
answer.
picture from like 1958, the Blue Marble, right?
Here
Shot
we
with
go.
the old film, huh?
Hey Nathan, get him back
You know what I
online.
mean? You guys won't even. I mean, this doesn't prove or disprove the globe at all. It's just telling you. I would just kind of see if your thinking would evolve, and you
We
could maybe
can't
move
disprove
past it.
arguments from ignorance fallacies. You have to prove it first so it can be disproved. So back to your
I
hypothesis.
proved gravity, and if gravity exists,
Which
it dictates
gravity?
the object to be spheres.
Yeah, you got me doing it. Quit diverting and give us the hypothesis.
Yeah, let's have the hypothesis.
That there's a force dependent on angular speed that you can associate with angular speed.
All right. So what would be the independent variable?
The angular speed.
And how are you going to manipulate that?
You just rotate an object. You know,
Oh, right. So we're not doing it to the Earth. We're trying to establish
No.
that centrifugal force just exists. Nobody
Yes,
disputes that.
and that no, I know nobody disputes that. You guys say that if the Earth is spinning, then it should throw all the atmosphere up, and I can prove to you that that's not true because it's such a small force.
All right, hold on a second. He gave us his hypothesis.
Yeah, hang on.
What's the
No,
independent-
What's the small force? The gravity that's holding
hold on.
on to
Look,
all the water and the atmosphere and everything. That's the small force you're talking about?
No,
Really?
the centripetal force or centrifugal. I forget
Can
what
we
it's
have the
called.
independent variable, please?
Angular speed? You don't have your thing up, and the dependent variable would be the force.
No, that's the momentum, right? Because that was your observed phenomenon.
Well, that's where this all comes from, the fact that momentum exists.
So
That's your
momentum is the dependent variable.
No, momentum is the fact.
Yeah,
that
it has to
that's
be. It's
why-
your observed
that's why
phenomenon.
Centrifugal force exists
Don't
because
talk over
objects
me.
going.
You already gave your observed phenomena as momentum. It must be the dependent variable. So
No.
angular speed causes momentum.
I mean, that's just so absurd that you
Oh
even think
my
that.
God.
That's what I'm trying to say. It's just
Angular
pretty
speed
hilarious.
causes momentum.
Yeah, that's
Is-
exactly right.
This
You-
is
I'm
preposterous.
just shook right
What's
now.
the null?
You absolutely destroyed
What's
me,
the
man.
null hypothesis? What's
that
the
the
null?
force isn't dependent
This
on
is-
angular speed, right?
No.
No.
No, that's not the null. Do it again.
No.
The opposite of my original hypothesis.
So
which
angular
is
speed does
there
not
is a
cause
force that is
momentum.
dependent upon angular speed.
This is preposterous right here. The non sequitur test, you failed this
Preposterous?
test.
What are you talking
Angular
about?
speed causes momentum.
No, see, you're so intellectually dishonest. It's absolutely ridiculous.
These are your
That's
words.
not what I'm
Why are you accusing him of being intellectually dishonest? Literally, all he has done is written down the words that have come out of your mouth, Unorthodox. How dare you?
Oh, give me a break, Nathan. I've heard you like.
Not give you a break. You've just accused him of dishonesty. All he has done is written down what you have said and then read it back to you after formulating it for you.
No, I don't see it. Where's it
Do you
at?
mean no? He's literally got it on screen for the audience as you said it. He wrote it down.
Oh, okay. Okay, here we go. No,
What do you mean, here we go? You've just accused someone of dishonesty, and literally what you are accusing is your own words that have been read back to you.
Nathan, my words is that the reason this exists is because of momentum. Not that. I mean, that's like. I mean, that's so stupid. I can't even really rebut it because it's just absolutely absurd.
This is like height causes elevation.
Oh yeah, exactly. No, maybe height causes the air pressure to decrease because of your relationship due to mass, right? So you guys, you guys are so intellectually dishonest. Like I could do this and prove to you guys that.
Oh, you did it.
Doesn't
You did it right here, man.
You
prove
call
it
us
flat Earth, and you
intellectually
guys still
dishonest.
won't even evolve your thinking at all
There's a
whatsoever.
force.
You guys
Where'd the
act like
force go?
you guys act like you're the purveyors of truth, all while dumping on everybody else trying to show you truth. I mean, you guys are the ultimate hucksters.
Sorry, you've just literally gone through this, and this is your truth on screen right now. And when read back to you, you accused those words of being intellectually dishonest. Literally your own words.
No, absolutely not. You're totally distorting what I'm saying.
Oh, my bad. That's okay then. You can just correct it. It's on screen now. Click on John's icon and you can see it for yourself. Just correct us. If you've made a mistake in your formulation, that's fine, unorthodox. Just take us through your corrections. No problem at all.
Let's see. Where's number one? I don't see number one.
You can see it in in 2B, but there you go.
Okay, so natural phenomena. Yeah, momentum.
Can I just come back to something just real quick that Unorthodox just said?
Sure, go ahead.
You just said, well, I guess momentum is the cause.
Well, he's trying to say it in a way that makes it sound silly and totally warps what I'm trying to do here.
How
Okay,
can
hold on,
momentum
John,
wait a
hold
second. How can momentum be a cause when it's his dependent variable?
Right. No. I know. Let me go back to that. Okay. He's not seeming to do anything unorthodox. All of us on the panel have no problem with what John has said to you. You are the one misconstruing and getting uncomfortable. No.
Maybe I am because he's so silly.
No. Okay.
I'm trying to be honest here. Okay.
Okay. Well, then be honest with me because I'm simply asking you again now because now you have seen the fallaciousness of your position when you go.
No, there's no fallaciousness.
Okay, listen to what you retracted and conceded for yourself when you said, "Oh well, I guess momentum is the cause." Okay, that affects what you are saying. That changes.
I mean, if you guys aren't capable of understanding this whole process, then I can't.
You're gonna have one last chance. If you descend to ad hominem again, I've just got to kick you out because it's basically the sign that you have lost this argument, unorthodox. Don't be pathetic little weasel.
Insane. This is insane.
So when you spin an object, there is a force because the object has momentum. It wants to move in a straight line. The reason that's coming up is not solely because of momentum. Momentum is not the one thing we're looking at here. We're looking at momentum's relationship to the angular speed, right?
According to you, it was. That was your observed phenomenon.
Okay.
I just wrote it down. It's here for everyone to see. Are you going to change this now?
No.
Okay.
Dependent variable is a force.
So you're going to roll with this, right?
There's a force. So dependent variable, the effect is a force.
Nigger.
Indeed.
Okay.
You know, you guys are just so ridiculous.
Okay, are we ready again? Are you
unorthodox?
Hey, Apollo.
When you say you guys are so ridiculous,
you're so
ridiculous. No, listen to me, please. Listen to me, please. That is your defense mechanism to take away. Yes, it is.
It is.
Yes, it is.
It is.
Yes, it is because you are being shown the illogical nature of your approach.
Illogical here.
Okay. You are being.
What's illogical? I guess maybe I was mistaken. I thought he was trying to misconstrue something. You know, maybe I was mistaken. You guys obfuscate so much that, you know, I'll admit maybe I was a little, I don't know, flustered.
Incoherent?
No, incoherent.
Presumptuous?
You're pretty crazy. John's pretty crazy. So
I'm crazy.
Being his crazy old self.
Right, that's your last one.
Yeah.
I mean,
hey, Iron Realm.
Hey, Iron Realm. How you doing? Is that Adam?
Yeah, how you doing, mate?
Good to have you.
What's up, Adam?
How
you doing, John? You okay?
No, I'm crazy.
We normally get to this point where you've destroyed their point pointlessly, and they sought to obfuscate that the attacks come in. So I thought I'd just come and sit for a bit with you guys.
That guy was destroying his.
Nathan seems unusually calm.
There's not. It's so daft listening to it, isn't it? That there's not much point really responding. It's
Yeah, there's a good point. We just let him hang himself, like he just did again. Right? I mean, look at this. Look, this is nonsense, man. This isn't a hypothesis.
Trying to defend it nonsense.
Hey,
It's like
I
you're
mean,
not trying to see what we're telling you. You're just automatically, oh, you guys are intellectually dishonest, when that's exactly what you're doing. I don't understand that guy. I don't get it.
I get it. He's a pretender clown. You know, like all the rest of them.
Yeah,
They
he's
couldn't-
right. Pretender clown is the right word.
They couldn't pass 5th grade general science right now.
Hey, I passed a higher GCSE physics.
Yeah, I heard about that.
Yeah, Riley.
Hey, Anthony, right? I know.
Congratulations.
Did anybody actually sit and go through the video and do it honestly and have a go at it as well? Because I was impressed with you, Riley. I did it, and
Is there any?
Go on, sorry.
Is there any way to verify that, Anthony? I mean, was there someone there? Can you please prove that actually happened?
Yeah, it's on a video.
Yeah,
I'm teasing. I'm just.
Oh right. Yeah, I hadn't seen it before, and like, can I just say that I hadn't seen the paper before? I did get 2 previous papers, which are a lot easier, and I haven't done any prep for it, studying, revision, or anything like that. I just did it the way it was presented, and I got what I got, but I passed it with the last 2 marks to go, and I was like, woo!
I think, mate, the only thing I'd say in your favour as well is there was a lot of stuff there that required just 10 minutes revision or a brush-up lesson before sitting an exam, like any student would do, just to redefine some definitions and the likes. And I think you'd have passed with ease, actually, if you'd have prepared for it like any of the other students.
To be honest, if I had the other paper, either of the other 2 papers that he gave to me prior, I'd have walked it. But because that paper was a lot of, I mean, come on, what's a positron? I've never even heard of it.
Just before we go on to...
I did know that one.
I did know that one. But besides that, just so we can round it out, while I've got John's screen still shared, because Unorthodox has this annoying habit of saying, after the fact, well, actually, I completely proved it. You guys just shouted over me and ignored it. So I'm hoping that John will actually go through this utter horseshit and point out why it's utter horseshit.
Yeah, well, it's really incoherent. Number one, natural phenomena observed. I don't know. Does anyone observe momentum? What does momentum look like?
Well, we observe momentum, but it's got to be relative to the thing that you're going to be testing, right? You can't just say a car goes round and roundabout, therefore the Earth spins.
And that's what I was trying to ask you. Like, are you kidding? Where do you see how do you associate that feeling in a car when you take a curve with the planet moving? How do you associate one with the other?
The nearest thing you could come up with would be either the trees sway or tides come in or go out. That would be the only 2 things I could think of that you could observe.
Somebody's mic is really bad.
Yeah, who is that?
Could be mine.
I think it's chocolate. Chocolate, you mic's buggered.
He's muted now. Yeah, so the only thing I could think that he would observe to satisfy the definition of a natural phenomena would be that the tide rolls in, that the tide rolls out, or trees sway. So one of them 2 would be it.
And then just define it as momentum. Okay, let's just roll with that. It's idiotic. So alternative hypothesis. See, this isn't a hypothesis. This is just a statement. It's almost like a philosophical statement. There's no if this, then that, right? There's nothing here. It's just a statement. There's a force dependent on angular speed. Well, thanks. Well, there's a invisible 3-toed gnome that has angular speed. It could be the same thing, right? This is not a hypothesis. Of course, then that leads to the other train wrecks. If this is not a hypothesis, the independent variable is angular speed of what? Right? Is everyone still there?
Yeah, we're all listening.
I'm here.
Okay. I mean, and the dependent variable is momentum. I mean, this is tantamount, just like I said, and that's why you do the non sequitur test with these things. You put the independent variable, which he stated was angular speed, and then the dependent variable momentum, and just put it in this sentence. Angular speed causes momentum. This is tantamount to saying height causes elevation, right? It's moronic. There's nothing here. What are you testing? Nothing. Zero. It's the null hypothesis. I mean, what would be the null here? There's not a force dependent on angular speed. It's inane. So that's all I got. If anyone else has anything, I can't do anything with this. This is preposterous.
I could come up with a ridiculous null.
Go ahead.
Angular speed does not cause momentum.
There you go.
Isn't that beautiful?
Yeah, it's inane. I mean, there's nothing. It's not even that it's wrong. So
so silly. But this is like most of the stuff they, like you say, most of what they put forward is an affirming the consequent. It's a formological fallacy. That's all they ever do.
That's not even this. This is just non sequitur. Period. Or a philosophical statement.
I like to ask these guys too, where they come up with what they're coming up with.
They wing it.
Them, like, right. Like, so I mean, I asked one guy, what did Cavendish see and notice on the Earth that made him think that mass attracts mass? And it's like, because he proved it in the experiment.
He saw the balls.
Where did he get the experiment is what I'm trying to get at. And it's like they can't make that leap. You know, what makes you think that the Earth is moving to the point where there should be a centripetal force?
Yeah, but you're way down the line. You're way down the line on the begging the question fallacies. You're chasing vapor, right? If you walked in, I'm going to tell you something. If you walked in, and if you were in 5th grade and the science teacher said, "Listen, I'm just going to give you one chance. Give me a viable hypothesis and give me the viable independent variable and dependent variable. And you provided this, you're taking 5th grade general science over again." So you got grown adults that are pretender clowns. Period. End of story. We just showed it again.
Anthony,
have a nice day.
John, I'm just thinking, you know, the guy that did the physics exam with Riley, it would be interesting if you could maybe show this to him and see what he makes of it.
You know, I didn't even watch that video. Who was the gentleman that provided the exam?
Riley's off mic at the moment. He's a teacher that essentially there was no benefit to Anthony really, but he just put forward a challenge to. He said basically flat earthers are stupid. I'm paraphrasing. I'm sure this wasn't his exact phraseology. I'm sure he's a lot more careful with his words. But basically, the general gist of it was flat earthers are stupid. I bet Anthony Riley couldn't even pass a GCSE physics exam. So that was the essential, gist of it from a physics teacher.
You mean the brainwashing exam?
Yeah, I noted that as well. So that was one of the first things I said. They make an assertion in the question and then formulate a question thereafter based on the assertion. So if you're in a high stress situation, i.e. an exam, and all your focus is on the question that has already come after an assertion, then you're going to take those assertions away with you, probably for the rest of your life, because of the high intensity stress that you were under when you read the assertion. It kind of makes my blood boil, if I'm honest.
Yeah, especially that article that I sent you about physics professors brainwashing their students. We should go over that one time.
Yeah, definitely. Have you still got his hand? Do it now.
You know what?
Yeah,
here, let me hide my screen for right now. I'll go track it down.
Yeah, no, you're off
do you have a
camera.
couple minutes?
Yeah, you're not displaying.
Okay. Go ahead, carry on.
We have been going for 2 hours, by the way.
Well, yeah, my kid fell asleep, so it's like I'm happy to carry on until my wife gets home and kicks me off. But at the moment, she's not home from work, so I'm happy to chat. I asked the chat as well. I was like, "You guys happy for me to carry on?" And they're like, "Yeah, great."
Yeah,
so
yeah, do it.
I'm happy.
So you got your mic sorted then?
Me? Oh,
yeah.
I'm sure you. I could see the levels bouncing, so I know you could hear me swearing and cursing.
I was trying to tell you. I was trying to say. I was
you.
filming. I was filming this boat, and then it's only when I got back today I looked at it and I saw the Isle of Man crystal clear as day behind the boat, and I'm like, oh my crikey! And I was trying to figure how much of the Isle of Man have I got, and of course, I'm not focusing on the Isle of Man. I'm focusing on this damn boat. But it was a massive portion of the Isle of Man that I was seeing. It was really frustrating. But I didn't realize it at the time.
You're gonna put it up. You had it playing, and I did have it playing in the background while you were scanning through it. I didn't manage to break through Unorthodox's non-stop rumpusing, but yeah, I tried to say it's on screen.
Oh right, okay. I didn't realize that. That was just me doing it. I'm uploading a video now, so that was just an elevation drop. Right, let me find the video.
Sweet.
So I'm so disappointed in myself, but the sun was right on the screen, and I couldn't see it, so I didn't even know it was there. Right, I've got it ready. Right, let me present.
Awesome. I was trying to talk to you about it today, and I haven't spent any time looking at this already with Ranty, so this is all new to me. But in essence, I was walking up to the park with my kids, and it just didn't time well when Ranty got back with his pictures. Let me know when you're ready.
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay, you're
I
on.
actually went back this afternoon. Once I saw this and I had something to sort out this afternoon, I went back and I measured the height above sea level. So 23 feet I was when I was looking, and I'm looking at this boat, and I didn't realise that the Isle of Man was visible behind it. So as I zoom in, I'm concentrating and talking about this bloody boat, not realising that right behind it there, right there, is the Isle of Man. I'm like, there's more of the Isle of Man to the right hand side. I was like, how did I not see this?
Sunshine on you. If you've got sunshine behind you, which it looks like you have, then it's coming directly on what you're looking at, which is the screen, right? Who's on the mic?
Can you see that now?
Who's rustling on their mic?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I've just muted you just as you were about to say something. Sorry. If you want to mute yourself, Apollo, my bad.
Sorry,
I can see the Island of Man. It's clear.
Cool, huh?
I was so frustrated when I saw that, because I was concentrating on this boat. We've been fixated on these boats recently.
How can that be the Isle of Man? Look, it's smaller than that boat.
Right, don't you understand absolute sizes of stuff?
What's your observer height here?
23 feet. I went back and I measured it this afternoon, and I did it on a video, and with a tape measure. So, yeah. But yeah, that's really frustrating.
Nice video.
Frustrating that I captured it and didn't notice that I'd captured it. But I also, where are we? This is the video that I'm uploading now, actually. What is it? Yeah, this one. So basically, I've got my tape measure out, and I'm measuring the height of the step, which was 6 inches. Then I know how many steps there are down, so I can work out my elevation above the actual sea level at the time, which was 9 feet. So I won't bore you with that, but I'll show you the evidence from 9 feet. 138
oh my God!
Feet
wow!
This is from 9 feet.
Oh wow! Look at this.
This is awesome.
This is what I did capture that on the phone call earlier. This is from 18 miles, right?
18.1 miles to that church and those buildings in the foreground here. Not to the lighthouse, which was nearer 13 miles or so, but the rest of it, flat as a pancake, innit? And then
I could see the beach.
You can see the beach from 9 feet.
This is what
the water is almost perfectly still as well.
This is what Tim Osman asked you to replicate, but this is far better than what you got last time. Wow, this is so cool.
Oh, that is wicked, right? That is a really flat day, mate.
Really flat day.
Really flat
Isn't
day.
it always a flat day?
That's just the air conditions are fabulous, and there's no waves. I can't see any waves anywhere. It's all just lying there.
Well, 3 times
any obstruction from the waves? No
No,
air obstruction.
There you go. There's the mirage layer.
amazing.
You can see
There we
the,
go.
see on those 2 buildings.
yeah. Well, that's actually on the seawall. That's the lifeboat station. It's actually in the sea. But it always seems that when I go to that direction, so sort of like northeast, when I'm looking northeast, this is the refract. I seem to get this refraction layer. But when I go to the northwest, which is looking at Barrow, or north, essentially I don't get as much refraction at this height. So I'm just focusing on the lifeboat station there. But yeah, I mean, 3 times I went down to like half a foot, and 3 times I got my camera absolutely drenched. So I think it's probably on its last legs now, because the seawater literally got it in everywhere on it.
Expect to see a GoFundMe from Ranty soon.
You get me another P900. But yeah, so this was from the 9 feet. Then I dropped my elevation, so I go down a few steps. I think I go down to about 6 feet now, or maybe even 5 feet. I think it was 70 inches. What's that? So 6 feet. Yeah, so I go down to 6 feet, and then I zoom in again. Sorry, I just skipped forward a bit there. So this is from 6 feet, not 9 feet.
So, did you guys know Nikon is going to release the P1000 in 2018?
Really? Is it
Yeah.
got a better zoom on it?
Yeah, let me read. The P9000 has 38 optical zoom, and the P1000 is going to have 125 optical zoom.
Whoa.
Wow.
And it's going to have either a 20 or 24 megapixel sensor.
Right.
And the lens might feature image stabilization. So it's going to be really awesome for zoom, because it's going to have optical image stabilization, and it might have 4K video, but it isn't. We aren't sure yet.
Sorry, something else I want to show you guys is I did a comparison today. So I went in a direct line, but higher up. So essentially I had to go down about a mile further down the coast to get the direct line of sight of when I got the 1 foot observation. So to line them up, I was using this rock that was in the foreground on the 1 foot observation. And you can see that this is the top one is what I captured from a foot. And this one was what I captured from 23 feet at a mile further down the coast. But just to show you that this rock that I keep saying is there, this Ranty's rock, is clearly evident in the 1 foot observation. How cool is that?
Leave it on screen a second longer, and I'm just going to make it big. Can you zoom?
awesome,
Can you zoom
Randy.
down 1 notch just so it all fits on frame, and then move your mouse off
Down
page?
1 notch.
Oh, is it? Oh, is that as small as it goes? That's okay. If you just move your mouse off page, just so. Ah, somebody's in the chat. Damn you! There you go. Maybe zoom in 1 notch just to fill the frame, just so there's. There we go. Perfect. So we've got at least one picture that's like nice, good size on the Hangout. Cool.
Okay.
I don't know if John's ready with his article, and I know if we've got time, we've got about. I'll run for another maybe 10 or 15 minutes, but then hopefully if we've got time, Apollo's got some mic, I'm pretty sure, as well, that he wanted to talk about.
But does anyone know where the bulge is on this bottom one? This bottom image?
There is no bulge, Ranty.
I'm looking for the bulge on it. I don't see much bulging going on.
Yeah,
Ranty, you're gonna have to get yourself a P1000, bro. Imagine the pictures you could take with that.
I'm actually going to have to get some waders, I think, and actually get in the sea, because when I go on those steps and I get down to half a feet, the swell hits the step and splashes up. And I'm thinking that if I wore a pair of waders and a tripod, I can put my tripod in the water away from the actual step, and it'll just be bobbling away at 2 or 3 inches in height. It won't actually splash up onto my camera. So that's the next thing. You'll see Ranty in the water. Get these observations.
It's nice enough to get your legs out in it at the moment, Randy.
It's not when you're getting absolutely drenched. I mean, every day I've been there for the last few days, I've had to go home because I've been pushing the boundaries of what is, safe for my camera and what isn't. And yeah, I think I've knackered it.
You need an aquatic suit with a snorkel and a waterproof camera. That's what you need to be saving for.
Has anyone asked Adam the question of the day?
Ooh.
What's the question of the day, Mike? You'll have to remind me, John.
How high is a 10-foot wall?
Oh, God. Damn you.
A 10-foot wall, that's 120 inches.
Nice.
Yeah. Okay, feet and inches is a concept that our eyes do not deal with. It's a concept. It's the concept of if you run a tape measure down something and it has agreed marks on the tape measure, we don't see things in their actual size. That's a nonsense. You just see them based on how big they are versus their distance, angular size.
Maybe
Yeah,
some of the ballers have like bionic eyes, and when they look at something, like
the answer to that question,
a display comes up and tells them exactly how high it is and stuff. I mean,
the proper answer to the question, how high is a 10-foot wall? The correct answer is depends how far away from it you are.
No.
Yeah.
No, it's always the same size.
Yeah.
No, it's not always the same size, Arwin.
Yeah, let me just correct you. Arwin's right, because by asking it in the concept that he lays down in the question, how high is a 10-foot wall, the concept is established, and that concept gives you actual sizes only. So the answer is always going to be 10 foot, which is what they want. Essentially, the question is framed to say, I'm a globehead and I only want to work in orthographic absolute sizes. How high is a 10-foot wall? So that you can only answer 10 foot.
It's ignorant of the question.
As opposed to asking how high is that wall over there.
It's not relevant to any observation. It's not a relevant question.
Correct. It's a spurious question that's designed to frame the answer how they need the calculator to be.
Exactly.
Well, they're not even asking that question until we bring up the issue of perspective.
Yeah, as I said, it's not relevant. If he wanted to actually honestly ask a question, then he would say, okay, what would the angular size of a 10-foot wall be at this and this distance? Then he'd have something that actually relates to perspective.
Right, and that's exactly what we're asking the ballers to apply. I mean, I don't know if John has got his presentation to do in regards to this article, which was very good, hopefully so. We've got about maybe 5 or 6 minutes left. But I still want concessions, so much so, it's frustrating. And I'm not saying this because I want to bust anybody's balls. I'm saying it because incorrect information has been given out, and it shouldn't be. The people who have deceived the public need to make a retraction based on their error, and it's frustrating for me knowing that these people are either liars or misled and just incorrect because of their own ignorance. And we expect to see these retractions. We expect to see them pretty soon as well. It's unreasonable to have to ask this many times, are you actually dishonest? Or have you just made a mistake? In which case, fair enough. We all make mistakes. We thought we could see Ireland. We couldn't. We had to admit that we'd made a mistake. And it's only reasonable that people who have misled the public into thinking that a begging the question proof of nothing, a perspective omitting Earth curve calculator can prove they're on a sphere, they need to actually come in front of us and say, yeah, okay, we know you're humouring us and we're begging the question with this calculator, but look, we've missed out perspective and that's our bad. We'll go and correct the calculation and make it actually represent the real world and perform viewing functionality. And in the meantime, the things we've put forward to date are wrong. And we're sorry. That's what we kind of hope for. Wouldn't you all agree on the panel?
Yeah, that would be
the
most
Yeah, I tell you what, let me paraphrase what the question was in a different way so that he might get the point. If you've got a glass beaker, and we'll say it's 10 centimeters tall, and then you slide it away from you, but keep your ruler where you are, you will see that glass beaker that was 10 centimeters tall suddenly starts shrinking quickly as it gets further away from you. So that 10 centimeter beaker isn't 10 centimeters anymore. It's 10 centimeters from however far away it is. and it looks about 5 centimeters when it gets to a certain distance away. So maybe if you put it in that context, that might help him understand.
I'd answer it like this, Anthony. It's how big's a 10-foot wall? And I'd say about that big from here. And that's the answer.
I agree.
From here, about that big.
But I think what he wanted was for us to respond. A 10-foot wall is always going to be a 10-foot wall, just so that he could respond with, "Oh, that means that the angular size never changes. That it's
That's why I
always going
said
to be a
that's why I
10-foot
had to
wall."
disagree with Darwin.
That's exactly what he tried to do.
Yeah.
I'll be
It
more
was like a
careful.
con.
I'll be more careful with the questions I ask in the future.
Right.
Yeah. Because we see right.
Oh, lost a couple of panelists.
So, we ready?
Yep, ready when you are.
Hold up, let me screen share. Tell me when it's up.
How long is this going to be?
Oh, not that long.
Right.
Couple minutes. All right, we ready?
Yep.
This may be very illuminating. It shouldn't surprise most people, though. This is from Physics Today. Propaganda and brainwashing. Physics professor admits brainwashing students with propaganda. They also trust the institution that awarded me a physics PhD and the university and physics department that hired me and allowed me to teach them. And I used that trust to effectively brainwash them. We who teach introductory physics have to acknowledge, if we are honest with ourselves, that our teaching methods are primarily those of propaganda. We appeal without demonstration to evidence that supports our position. We only introduce arguments or evidence that support the currently accepted theories and omit or gloss over any evidence to the contrary. We give short shrift to alternative theories, introducing them only in order to promptly demolish them, again by appealing to undemonstrated counter evidence. We drop the names of famous scientists and Nobel Prize winners to show that we are solidly on the side of the scientific establishment. All of this is designed to demonstrate the inevitability of the ideas we currently hold, so that if students reject what we say, they are declaring themselves to be unreasoning and illogical, unworthy of being considered as modern thinking people. Of course, we do all of this with the best of intentions and complete sincerity. I have good reasons for employing propaganda techniques to achieve belief. So I, like all my colleagues, teach the way I do because I have little choice. But it is brainwashing nonetheless. When the dust settles, what I am asking my students to do is to accept what I have to say because I, as an accredited representative of my discipline, profession, and academia, say it. All the reason, logic, and evidence that I use simply disguise the fact that the students are not yet in a position to sift and weigh the evidence and arrive at their own conclusions.
Amen.
Wow.
What, can you just cite the reference, please, John?
This is from Singham Mano. It's Teaching and Propaganda in Physics Today, volume 53, June 2000, page 54. And this is the link. Maybe you can post it. So
yeah,
Physics Today, Teaching and Propaganda. It comes. This is a really great article. I only picked a snippet out of it. So go ahead and read the whole thing.
Sure.
Good. All right. Let me copy this and maybe you can put it in the show notes.
That's a great demonstration of how most teaching's done. It's not necessarily reasoned with students. It's told to accept. The first bit, though, John, of the first paragraph as you were reading it, just kind of rung true in terms of the ballers and how they try to argue with us. Again, it's not reasoning. It's undemonstrated counter evidence.
Well, most of them, this is specifically talking about university or physics at the university. So most of the people that we're dealing with out here couldn't pass 5th grade general science to begin with, right? Most of them are high school graduates. Look, you could tell right away if somebody's been to university or not, just the first couple sentences out of their mouth, right? but this is specifically targeting what these teachers are doing at the university level. When the students first come in at the university level, and once you start brainwashing, see, this is the base. All the brainwash and propaganda, that's the base that they're going off from. That is the foundation of belief. Look at the belief in here.
Can I just say that when they start talking about refraction and how it bends light and Snell's law and all that, this is brainwashing being manifest in humans. When they all start talking about stuff that doesn't even apply, Snell's law does not apply because there's no change in medium, but they apply it anyway. That's because they're indoctrinated and brainwashed.
And that's the bit that relates. We drop the names of famous scientists and Nobel Prize winners to show that we are solidly on the side of scientific establishment. Again, it's name dropping without any proof of point or relevance to, as you said, particularly Snell's law, relevance to the.
Yeah, this one right here. Again, appealing to undemonstrated. See, that's the big word right here. Undemonstrated. It's always undemonstrated. They don't demonstrate it, they just say it.
It does kind of sound like at least he was trying to be very honest.
Oh, yeah.
Declaration is really, it sounds like he's not trying to cover it up. He's trying to use the absolute correct words for everything. It sounds like the man has integrity, at least. And he seems to be a little conflicted about it.
I was going to say, it sounds more like a confessional.
Yeah. Read the whole article. It's really good. And he picks out a couple of his students that he had, and one of his students said, I listened to your more or less baloney, this whole semester, and I don't believe a word of it. He just told him straight up. So go ahead and check the article out. It's pretty good.
I stuck a link in the chat. We've got a couple of minutes if anybody wants to round out with something particularly important.
It's worth giving a shout out to the guy that didn't come in the chat. I mean, we probably said we weren't going to mention him again, but it is worth concluding with him that he was claiming to be a flat earther and he was claiming to support Metabunk's curve calculator. And it's in the interest of everybody in flat earth that somebody that spouts nonsense gets challenged where nonsense is being spouted. And I felt that it was nonsense. I gave him a week. He didn't come back to me after I requested that he did do. And he doesn't have to come back to me, but if he doesn't come back to me, he's going to get shouted out at some point. And that's exactly what happened. And we kind of owe it to ourselves to call out people that claim to be flat earthers, then support stuff that we're clearly questioning and rebuking. And it's got to the point where it's now become ridicule. And we've got this guy claiming to be flat earth, but nonetheless supporting the official narrative. So it's right that we call these people out. And he did have time to come in. He did have a week to come back to us. He didn't do it. So consider yourself shouted out.
I have one more point before you run out the show.
Go ahead.
I'm kind of curious because Rumpus, again, yesterday, I did actually make mention of it. He said that he would do a hangout today. Glorious hangout explaining everything. So I wonder, has anybody seen Rumpus's glorious hangout yet?
No, not seeing any sign of it. Anthony, can you just round out about concessions and retractions that we need, and then I am going to end.
Well, before you do that, Nathan, is there any chance of a shameless plug for us?
Iron Rail Media, go ahead.
Yeah, well, tonight, hopefully, we're going to have Norbs on again, so a little bit of his music, but fingers crossed Martin Leitker will be joining us and discussing a little bit of history and hopefully in relation to the incorporation of the ball and kind of demonstrating that there is no such thing as history and this false adaptation of the ball that's apparently always been there for 500 years is again very much a falsified piece of history. So
I believe so.
See where that ramble takes us, but yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
That's Iron Rail Media tonight, and I think you start at 9 p.m. UK.
10
p.m. UK. Got 30 seconds, Anthony. Just if you could about concessions, that'd be really appreciated.
Concessions are due, not just from Belief is a Thief, but from every baller. That includes Rumpus, Jeremy, Slice Barcane, Red's Rhetoric, all of them people that have ever used the Metabunk curve calculator. You have all told us to apply the absolute height to the refracted hidden value, and you were all wrong because perspective really is a thing.
And with that, I'm going to say first and foremost, a huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of the debating panel for making this debate possible. And of course, a massive thank you to all of the live audience for tuning in and hopefully for sharing this debate. If you hated the show, you know exactly what to do. But if you like the show, maybe consider sharing it with a friend or subscribing if you have not done so already. I've been Nathan Oakley and I'll see you all in the next video.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!